Yo, what's good, YouTube? It's Abracadabra. We're back here with another video, a bit different this time around. As you can see, I'm starting already in a battle. But that is because the focus of this video isn't actually on the battle gameplay itself. Today we're going to be discussing what I think is the #1 most common mistake made by new and even some older Pokemon Showdown players that is preventing them from hitting the highest peak they can reach when playing. And I'll just jump straight into it. No keeping you guys waiting. It's a matter of whether or not people overpredict and try to be too smart with it. The #1 key to playing well in Pokemon is playing simple. I know this may seem counterintuitive, and truth be told, when you're getting higher up on that ladder, when you're looking at them top 500 players, it is a bit less valid of a point. But even at that point, very often you'll see players lose games just because they get greedy. They try to make a play that'll be cool, let's say, a play that'll get them a lot of ground very fast. But that often happens at the expense of overlooking a simpler play that may occur, and its occurrence leading to their eventual loss down the line, or at least losing potential ground they may have. Now, I must admit, I am a big victim of this. I'm not gonna act like I'm good at this whatsoever. I've had this problem ever since I first started playing the game. Probably a big part of it is me watching Blunder as much as I do. I really enjoy watching Blunder. I find though that he also makes some very crazy plays, and even though he tends to get them right, a lot of the time he also tends to get them wrong. Of course, he's such a good player, he can recover from the mistakes. But for newer players, I think it's really important to not try and always make these plays that will get you a ton of ground in one turn and can win you the game way too early, because they're just not sustainable. In the long run, you're gonna get plays like this wrong. They are going to lead to tilt almost always, and it's just better to play simple. Now the game I'm currently playing is not going well, as you may be seeing, but that doesn't really matter because that's not our focus here, right? Either way, holy shit, that kills through multi-scale. Wow. I guess that's gonna probably be game for us here. But what the focus of understanding this is comes down pretty simply to whether or not you really think, like, I feel like all people have this issue of often overestimating how smart they are, or even in some cases it may be overestimating how smart your opponent is, because that is a big part of it, of course. If your opponent is playing like a doofus, your predictions will lead to negative results in the long run. And that's a huge thing that people don't really consider. Like, when you're making a predictive play, when you're making a prediction when you're playing, you are making the assumption that your opponent is gonna make a correct play, right? Almost always. You're not gonna make an insane prediction where it's like, oh, like say here, if I thought, let's say instead of my Tusk, okay, I had a Blissey left in the back, okay? So his Walking Wake wouldn't wanna hit my Blissey as much, and he'd have his Slitherwing as a very good switch-in for my Blissey, right? Me trying to predict the switch to the Slitherwing and staying in and hitting, although maybe in theory a good play, it assumes that he'll see the Blissey switch, he will consider the Blissey switch a negative position for him with a Wake, which obviously is not exactly correct in this case, but again, we are making some assumptions, making some slight adjustments and whatnot. And that's just a very rudimentary part of any turn-based game, that you can't know what your opponent is thinking, ever, pretty much ever. Now, even if you play simple, obviously you're gonna lose some games. Like here, I played very simply, I made no predictions whatsoever, very streamlined game I played. But Sun is a good matchup against me, my opponent didn't really make any mistakes, he played nice, we lose the game. The essence of playing simple isn't so much that it'll get you some insane improvement right away, or that it'll make you a much better player or anything. It's just that it'll make you a more consistent player. It's not about skill level, it's about consistency level. And I find that it's much more important to be able to play consistently decent than play 1 in 5 games amazing and then the rest just be so and so. So this is all nicely said and whatnot, but how do you actually apply this in games? Well, number one is always having it in mind. If you're not thinking about playing simply, it'll be very easy to go back to your patterns of play, let's say, where you'll make over predictive plays, you'll play sloppy, you'll play fast, and you'll just overall be a bit reckless in your play. It's important that you don't autopilot, but also you don't get into this zone of, okay, I gotta get every play I have to get ground on my opponent, I gotta get ahead, and whatnot. Okay, I think that it's simple in concept, of course, but it's a huge thing, and it's something that's greatly overlooked a lot of the time. Now, obviously, I'm not saying you're never gonna make prediction plays, right? Like here, I made that switch to Lando. That was a prediction play, and it wasn't one of high risk though, right? It wasn't a play that made anyone go wow, first of all. But it also wasn't a play that made anyone say, oh, but what if that didn't work out? That's something you need to consider. What if it didn't work out? Yes, a prediction might be cool. Yes, if you get it right, you might win a game instantly, whereas if you get it wrong, you'll only lose a mon. But losing a mon is a lot bigger than we tend to think. And that is so pivotal. It's so pivotal that we understand this in order to improve in our gameplay. Now, once again, like, this isn't the end all be all. Okay, I understand this fully. You can make all the correct plays. You can make a lot of good predictions even at times and still lose games. You might play better than an opponent and lose. You might play worse than an opponent and win also. The game of Pokemon is one that is greatly variable in results regardless of how well one plays. A lot of the time, the matchup will just be really tough and you won't be able to do anything about it. You're just gonna lose it. Like right now, I'm playing against Stall with a team that has nothing that can really set up. About 1 mon per counter, and it's just not a very fun matchup for me right now. Will I give it up? Obviously not. I will fight to get this win, but it'll be a tough game. It's very likely I lose this game, and yet if I play consistently, I don't try to make any insane plays, and wait for the right moment to make a bit of a bigger reach, let's say, of a play, then I have a shot, even against the worst of matchups. Always. You need to always remember this. Even the worst of matchups can be brought into a fair position, a position that may or may not be winnable, just purely off of being consistent in your play, not trying to do too much, making simple but correct switches, and trusting the process. Okay? It's really as simple as that. And I really wish I could have had some better games to showcase this, because obviously I'm not really playing too well, but I'm more concentrated on what I'm saying and making sure that everything is going according to what I have in my mind for my explanations about this video. But either way, like, the points almost all still stand. And it's very important to also consider things like, okay, let's say I play consistently. I lose, like right now, I'm about to lose probably a second game in a row. Does that mean I should switch something up? Now, according to what I've been saying, you'd probably think, okay, maybe I should, I've not been as consistent as I should be, but you've clearly seen, like, I haven't made any predictive plays, I haven't tried to do anything too fancy, very simple plays, switching around. Obviously, Stall is a bit of a weird matchup because you don't really have a choice, like, there's not much to predict. Stall, you're either gonna get every single turn right and win, or your opponent is going to slowly but surely reduce morale and take the win over you, which it sucks, but it's part of the game, of course. And another this nicely transitions into another really important and nice point of you're not gonna win all the games you play. You're gonna lose some games. You can be consistent, you can play perfect, you're still gonna lose some games. That's just how it is. Some matchups are not good. You will try and you will bring them as close as possible. And if your opponent does make a mistake, like in a game like this, if I play consistent and my opponent does end up making a mistake, then all of a sudden I may have a chance to win. Now, my opponent has been fairly decent up until now, I won't lie. But look at that. Our consistency, made simple plays, got off a nice little comment, got a little crit, and now we suddenly have a bit of leeway. Now, are we gonna say that we won that game off of luck? In part, yes, obviously. There was a good element of luck. That was the perfect time to get that crit. It gave me a winning route when I had nothing. That is why my opponent forfeited, of course. But it's not that simple. When you're playing a matchup like Stall, for example, and I'll just sit here and talk for a bit instead of playing another game because I need to be focused on what I'm actually saying. When you're playing against something like Stall, it's very important to understand that it's more likely you eventually get lucky against Stall. What is Stall's purpose? To prolong the game. But the way statistics work, the way probabilities work, it's quite simple. If a game goes on longer, it becomes more and more likely that I will get lucky eventually. Now, yes, I did get the perfect turn to get that crit, sure, but even if I didn't, eventually maybe I would have found a break somewhere else, or maybe even I wouldn't. Maybe I'd lose this game. I lost the previous game. I didn't make any crucial mistakes. I played simple. I didn't make any crazy predictions, but I still lost. The matchup wasn't good. My opponent played well. My opponent did make a prediction that was correct, and I'm not saying, again, like, it's not a critique of players who can. First of all, if you're good at predictions, obviously you have a bit of more leeway to make some more predictions. And on days where I'm feeling good and I'm playing well, I won't lie, I make a lot of predictions. I make a lot of predictive plays. I try to think always 1 or 2 steps ahead. When you're in that kind of zone, if you know what I mean, like obviously it doesn't work the same way as in sports, but even when playing like Pokémon or chess, for my chess players out there, like when I play chess, there are times where I feel like I'm zoned in and I can see every line I want to take, right? So in the same exact, following the same exact concept, the same thing can occur in Pokemon, right? So in essence, play simple. Don't try to overdo it. I think it's important to constantly remind yourself of playing simple. Even like get a little sticky note, write a little comment, be like, okay, today let's focus on not overdoing it with the predictions, right? And stick it right on the corner of your screen. Have it there just as a reminder to not play sloppy, not try to do too much. And if you're gonna take a prediction play, find ones with the lowest opportunity cost possible, right? Because again, last game I had like that 1 or 2 turns where I made plays that were slightly more, let's say, well thought out. I don't like to say well thought out. Obviously, I feel like that's a bit tooting my own horn. It's more so they were predictions that even if they turned out to be wrong, it wouldn't be like I wouldn't even lose them on. I think losing 1 of 6, even if it's a bad 1 of 6, sometimes like predictions may seem like, oh, okay, I'll just lose this mon, but this mon isn't that good anyway. No, a 5 on 6 is greatly different to a 6 on 6, even if that 6th mon isn't good. Like, even if it's just kept as a sack, right? There is some value to it. Now, this is very poor timing for me to be saying this because in my current position here, I have 2 choices. A, I play assuming my opponent will make the prediction, right? So it's a 50-50 pretty much. It's not exactly 50-50, but let me explain the process. Either A, I assume my opponent makes the right play. Well, the right play varies according to my decision, which also shows why I don't like prediction-based playing, right? When you're playing a prediction-based position, the correct play doesn't really exist, right? Especially if it's a 50-50. You can't say there's a correct play because the play you make is directly dependent on the play I make. And the play I make may come down to a decision as simple as I don't think Lando is that good this game, right? So here I could click rocks. And then you make the prediction that I'll go Iron Moth because that'll take the ice move well. I'll go King Gambit because that'll take the ice move well. And I'll get up my rocks. Now, truth be told, I do know, I have seen my opponent's team before, so I do know this is slow Kyurem. And I opt to take my rocks here. That's not a prediction play, but even if it were a position where I considered I had to make a prediction, I probably wouldn't do something much different because, quite frankly, this team is very Kyurem weak, right? I didn't really have a switch. Positions like this will occur, of course. That's 100% natural. If I recall correctly, this is specs, so that's why I went right into Iron Moth. No second guessing it. And I like this. I have this booster special attack set, which, looking at his team, could get some nice room if he made a switch. Now, it turns out he wasn't actually spec, so I didn't remember that correctly, so he didn't have to make a switch. But regardless, obviously, the false safety one may feel at the expense of thinking they have asymmetric information, thinking they know more about our opponent's team, for example, as I just did, than I actually do. Things like that obviously do play a huge role, and you could call those, even those are like almost essentially prediction plays. I make an assumption based on the fact that I think I know the team, and I make a play according to that, and it doesn't turn out to be good for me. Okay, things like this. Again, that was a mistake. I 100% take the blame for that. But I'll keep playing consistently. I won't try and find space where there isn't, right? Because another big mistake would be I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm down 2 mons now to that Kyurem because it has a great matchup into me, especially when it's not the spec set. I need to make something happen straight away. I need to make some prediction play that will somehow get me ahead, and then when I'm ahead, I can make my quote-unquote move, let's say. But that's just not what I feel like the essence of Pokemon is, especially when you're not at that level where you know the meta so well that you know how to make correct prediction plays consistently, right? Because obviously, again, going back to the example of Blunder or looking at even Pokeaim sometimes, Pinkacross, I think, is closer to the mentality I'm taking to preach now. He's very consistent. He doesn't ever try to make any too predictive plays. Nothing like that. Simple playing always. And I really respect that, of course. I really respect the way Pinkacross plays. I definitely look up to him as a player. And yeah, if you look at a lot of the great players who, however, are not as big on YouTube, for example, Pinkacross, Sav, Jamvad, even, okay, I don't want to say Envy because Envy is very different than all of these other people because his content is a lot more based around his team building, and he's also growing pretty rapidly lately, to be fair. But regardless, my point is, if you think about it, even though most of these guys I named in the latter half, like Pinkacross, again, Savuras, Jamvad, these guys are slightly, I don't want to say they're better than Blunder and Pokeaim, but if you look at their consistency on the ladder, how consistently you find their accounts being in the 1850s to 1950s, it's a lot more consistent, and that is because again, they play in a more simple manner, but also on the counter side. And the reasoning why so many of us actually enjoy playing this more predictive style so much is, think about why you watch Blunder and Pokeaim. It's not so much because every game you'll be like, okay, let me see how he thinks about this turn and what he does differently this turn versus that turn, and why on this turn he made this play, that turn he made that play, etc, etc. It's more simple. It's every now and then they'll get that one play correct, and it'll be an intense reaction. Everybody watching will be like, oh wow, what a play. Oh, wow, Blunder is so smart. I love Blunder. I want to be like Blunder. I want to play like Blunder. And I 100% get it. Again, there is no bigger victim to over prediction than me. And I guess I'm kind of just making this video also to remind myself of this fact. Playing simple is not only okay, in my opinion, something that should be encouraged. Okay. Ivy Cudgel is a role, I believe. Here we do not get it, sadly. So again, here I played simple, I played consistent. I had a very bad matchup with non-specs Kyurem, and I brought it down to a roll. Yes, another loss. Okay, today's not been my day, but this will happen. And I know this might, especially considering I went 1-2 in this recording, it may seem like, okay, who is this guy? Why does this guy think he can talk about Pokemon? Why does this guy think he knows what playing well is? But like, not to flex or anything like that. Like, I don't think I'm as good as any of like the people I've mentioned earlier. It's very possible you, whoever you are watching, are better than what I play. You play better than what I do. But I am a player with some pretty good achievements. I've made, just last week, I made semifinals in a national Dex tournament. I'm a consistent player in a lot of smog tours. I've hit top 500 on the OU ladder many a time. I've even hit top 50 a couple of times. Not as often, of course, but... and I've done all of this in under 3 months of playing Pokemon, right? I'm a new player and I can consistently perform this well. So I think, even though I may not be the most qualified player, I am in a position where I can at least give some of my takes, speak on how I've managed to improve as fast as I have, because I typically people don't improve at this rate. And I've done this without considering myself to be some really good player. Like, I genuinely don't think I have nearly as good skills as, say, Blunder in making foresight plays. I don't have nearly as good an understanding of the team builder as Pinkacross does. I don't have nearly as good an understanding of the metagame as Savuras does. And yet, despite all of this, I can get accounts up there, and I can get accounts that can compare in level to these guys. If I ever match up with these guys, I believe, even though I'm not confident I'd win most games, I believe I can put up fights, and if we play a 5-game series, I think I can take a game or two. And just overall, I think I'm a decent player. And hopefully this tip can help players, not just players who are new to the game, even players who are older with the game, players who are better than me at the game, of course. Like I think the most simple way to prove this is picking a case like Blunder, okay? Because I've talked a lot about in this video about Blunder and how he makes very predictive plays and how they often backfire. But even Blunder himself acknowledges, I think, that this isn't the best form of play, and the way to prove this is let's just take a look. Now, Blunder doesn't as often upload his own tournament games. He usually uploads his commentaries, but every now and then he'll have these videos where he'll post like his tournament games. And if you actually go through these videos, like, first of all, even just looking at this team structure, right? Every video you'll see, almost always he's going to be running an HO. Yet here he has a nice little bulky balance running. And it's just, if you actually sit and watch these videos, you'll see that his thought process and the way he plays is a lot less prediction based in these games. Which means what? When the time is when the games are of greatest importance, he too recognizes that you shouldn't overpredict. So basically, even though you're probably a huge Blunder fan, even though you're probably a great player, even though you probably are better even than me at the game, or are at similar level to me at the game, I think you can extract some value from this. Because I don't think I'm that good at this game, and yet I still can get results. I still can hit the top of the ladder very often, very consistently. Like, again, like returning to today, you saw I had those losses. I even had some before I started recording, I won't lie. But I will be back to record a 1700 video tomorrow. Again, remember, previous video, I tried using Squawkabilly. Squawkabilly did not work out for me. I dropped well below what my average rating is. And then again, I was back up by the end of the recording. I was back in the 1650s using a Mew team, like without even using a good team. And yeah, I think that's just the single most simple way to greatly make a change to the level of play you may have is that. Yes, there are some more tips I will be speaking about in my next video, which will be on how you too can hit top 500 on the OU ladder. But if you have to keep one, like I'll have another 5 tips in that video, but if you have to keep one of all of these tips as the number one most important thing is play simply. A bad team can beat a bad matchup by playing simply with a bit of luck, with a bit of misplay from your opponent, because that's what playing simple gives you. It gives you such great exploitation value of any of your opponent's mistakes. Thank y'all for watching. I hope you guys enjoy this type of content. I will have more out there for you. And until next time, peace out. Love y'all.